A saleswoman thought she could humiliate Pierre's housekeeper. She mocked her, laughed, and made cruel comments in front of everyone. Just because she walked into an expensive jewelry store, and in her mind, that woman didn't belong there. But what Aaron did next left everyone in shock. That morning, Margaret woke up excited. Her paycheck had just been deposited, and after paying the bills and setting aside money for groceries, she had a little left over, enough to spend on something special, a gift for her granddaughter. She never liked spending money on herself, but for little Lily, she'd do anything. The girl's birthday was coming up, and Margaret wanted to give her a pair of gold earrings. Small, delicate, something Lily could keep forever. She already knew exactly where to go. A jewelry store in the city center. It wasn't a place she usually visited, but she had passed by its window a few times and seen beautiful, sparkling pieces that seemed perfect for her granddaughter. She took the bus, holding her purse tightly in her lap. With every jolt, her heart raced with excitement. This wasn't just a gift. It was a symbol of her love for Lily. When she arrived at the jewelry store, she took a deep breath before stepping inside. The floor gleamed so much that she felt strange walking on it. The atmosphere was luxurious, fragrant, illuminated in a way that felt different. The employees wore tailored suits and elegant dresses, and the jewelry was displayed in glass cases, protected like treasures. Margaret walked slowly to the counter, her eyes shining at the sight of so many rings, necklaces, and bracelets. But she knew exactly what she was looking for. When she spotted a pair of small, delicate gold earrings, she pointed with a smile. "I'd like to see this pair, please." And that's when it all began. The jewelry store was silent, the kind of silence that made Margaret feel even more out of place. She wasn't the type to frequent places like this, but at that moment all that mattered was Lily's gift. The saleswoman, a tall blonde woman with a gold name tag on her chest, looked Margaret up and down. A quick glance, sharp, the kind of look that says everything without a single word. "This pair?" the woman asked, raising an eyebrow. Margaret smiled and nodded. "Yes, I think they're beautiful. How much do they cost?" The saleswoman didn't answer right away. Instead, she let out a short laugh as if she had just heard a joke. Then she turned to a colleague and whispered something. The two of them laughed. Margaret heard it and felt her face grow hot. "This pair is solid gold, ma'am," the saleswoman said, her fake politeness barely masking her condescension. "I'm not sure if it's within your budget." Margaret didn't understand at first. Or rather, she pretended not to. "I just want to know the price." The woman took a deep breath and finally answered. The number made Margaret swallow hard. It was expensive. More than she had expected, but not impossible. She had saved up. She had done the math before leaving home. She could afford it. "I'll take them," she said it firmly, confidently. The saleswoman blinked a few times, surprised. "Are you sure? We could show you something more affordable." And there it was. The humiliation disguised as kindness. That's when Margaret heard a voice behind her, a familiar voice. "Is there a problem selling these earrings to her?" The store went silent. Pierre was standing there. Margaret froze. She knew that voice. She worked for that man every day. Pierre stood behind her, hands in his pockets, staring directly at the saleswoman. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp, a look that cut through the air. The saleswoman was caught off guard. She blinked a few times, glancing at Margaret and then back at him. "Oh, Mr. Pierre." She forced a smile. "Not at all. I was just helping the customer find something more suitable." Aaron narrowed his eyes. "Suitable?" Margaret's heart pounded. She didn't want trouble. She just wanted to buy the gift and leave. "It's okay, sir," she started to say, but Aaron raised a hand, signaling her to stop. "No, Margaret, it's not okay." The entire store was watching. Customers, employees, even the security guard at the door. "You thought you could humiliate this woman just because she doesn't dress like your usual customers?" Aaron's voice was calm, but every word carried weight. The saleswoman turned red. "Sir, You laughed at her, mocked her, assumed what she could or couldn't afford. But you know what? The problem isn't just you. The problem is this store." The jewelry store manager, a man in a black suit, suddenly appeared looking nervous. "Mr. Pierre, I sincerely apologize. This does not reflect our values." "Then prove it. I want to buy this jewelry store." The entire store fell silent. The saleswoman's eyes widened. Margaret clutched her chest. "Sir? What?" The manager stammered. "You heard me. Name your price. Because from today on, this store is going to treat every person with respect." Absolute silence. No one saw that coming. Margaret looked at Aaron, still trying to process what was happening. He turned to her and smiled. "Pick the most beautiful earrings you can find, Margaret. They're my gift to Lily." Her eyes filled with tears. But the story wasn't over yet. Margaret felt her eyes burn. A gift for Lily. She looked at Aaron, then at the saleswoman, who now kept her head down, unsure of where to hide. The humiliation that had once been hers now belonged to the one who had tried to belittle her. The manager was still speechless. Buying the jewelry store? It all felt surreal. Margaret took a deep breath. "Mr. Pierre, I don't know how to thank you, but I want to buy my granddaughter's gift with my own money." Aaron smiled. He knew she would say that. Margaret was proud. She worked hard, dedicated herself, and wanted to earn things on her own. He nodded. "Then do it, but choose the best one." The saleswoman, who had treated her with such disdain before, was now flustered, eager to assist. "Ma'am, we have this model here, and this one." Margaret looked at the earrings she had originally wanted, but now, with her heart pounding, she chose another pair. An even more beautiful design, more delicate, more expensive. "I'll take these." The saleswoman forced a smile. "Of course, ma'am." Margaret took the money from her purse, counted the bills, and paid with her debit card. Every cent was hers, and when she held the small box in her hands, she gripped it tightly. She had done it. But Aaron wasn't finished yet, and what he did next left the entire store in shock. Margaret held the small jewelry box, feeling her heart warm. This was more than just a gift. It was respect. It was achievement. It was love for Lily. But Aaron still wasn't done. He crossed his arms and looked directly at the manager. "So, how much does this store cost?" The manager still looked stunned. "Mr. Pierre, I'm not sure if I can find out now," Aaron said, his patience wearing thin. The saleswoman swallowed hard. Every employee was on edge. No one had seen this coming. The manager hurried off to make some calls. Meanwhile, Aaron slowly walked around the store, observing the details, the displays, the staff. The silence was deafening. Margaret stepped closer and spoke softly. "Mr. Pierre, are you really going to buy this store?" He smiled. "I don't know yet, but I wanted to see how far they would take this." That's when the manager returned, still looking nervous. "Mr. Pierre, the owner is open to discussing it. We can set up a meeting." Aaron was silent for a few seconds. The entire store waited for his answer. Then, he took a deep breath and said something no one expected to hear. "I don't want it anymore." Eyes widened all around. "What do you mean?" the manager asked, bewildered. Aaron looked straight at the saleswoman. "Because this store is worthless. If the people who work here don't know how to treat customers with dignity." The woman lowered her head. The employees exchanged glances. "My goal was never to buy this store. My goal was for you to learn a lesson." The tension in the air was thick. No one dared to speak. Aaron turned to Margaret and smiled. "Let's go. You have a beautiful gift to give." Margaret nodded, holding the little box close. They walked out together. and as the door closed behind them, the saleswoman knew she would never treat anyone that way again. But there was still something Margaret didn't know. And Aaron was about to surprise her once again. Margaret and Aaron walked side by side along the sidewalk. The weight of the small jewelry box in her hands felt different now, more meaningful. She looked at him, still struggling to believe everything that had just happened. "Mr. Pierre, I don't know how to thank you." Aaron gave her a small smile. "You don't have to. You deserved that. And I couldn't just stand by and watch someone treat you like that." She lowered her head, overcome with emotion. No one had ever done something like that for her before. When they reached the corner, Aaron stopped. "Tell me something, Margaret. What's your granddaughter's biggest dream?" Margaret chuckled softly. "Oh, Lily dreams big. She wants to be a ballerina. But those classes are expensive and I do what I can, but..." Aaron cut her off with a smile. "Then it's settled. From now on, she'll have the best ballet lessons in the city. I'll cover everything." Margaret's eyes widened. "What? No, Mr. Pierre, that's too much." He gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You've spent your whole life taking care of others. Now let someone take care of you." Margaret tried to respond, but her voice failed her. The tears came first. She covered her face with her hands, shaking her head in disbelief. "My God, Lily is going to be so happy." Aaron smiled, satisfied. "She better practice hard. Because when she steps onto that stage for the first time, I want to be in the front row cheering her on." Margaret sobbed, laughing through her tears. The gift for Lily was already special, but now she had something even bigger to tell her. And the next day, when Margaret got home, another surprise was waiting for her. The next morning, Margaret woke up early, as always. The smell of coffee filled the small kitchen as she gazed at the little jewelry box sitting on the table. It still felt like a dream. She could hardly wait to see Lily's face when she opened the gift, but what truly warmed her heart was knowing the little girl now had a real chance to follow her dream. That's when someone knocked on the door. She hesitated. Who would be visiting this early? When she opened it, her heart nearly jumped out of her chest. Aaron Pierre was standing there, not in a suit, not looking like a movie star, but in jeans and a simple shirt, holding an envelope in his hands and a warm smile on his face. "Good morning, Margaret." She clutched her chest, startled. "Mr. Pierre, what are you doing here?" He lifted the envelope. "I wanted to deliver this personally. Lily's enrollment is complete." Margaret's eyes widened. "What?" "I got her a spot at one of the best ballet schools in the city, and I've already paid for her first few years. She just has to show up on Monday." Margaret felt her legs go weak. She had to steady herself against the doorframe. "My God, I don't even know what to say." Aaron smiled, resting a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Just tell Lily to get ready. The world is waiting for her." Margaret couldn't hold back her tears any longer, but Aaron still had one more surprise. And this time, even she would be left speechless. Margaret was still trying to process everything. The enrollment was complete. Lily would have classes at the best ballet school in the city. But Aaron wasn't done yet. "Oh, I almost forgot." He pulled another envelope from his pocket and handed it to her. Margaret took it with trembling hands. When she opened it and saw what was inside, she had to sit down. "No, this can't be..." Inside the envelope was a job contract. "What is this, Mr. Pierre?" Aaron pulled up a chair and sat across from her, smiling. "I thought a lot about this last night. You've worked hard your whole life taking care of everyone, and at the end of the day, you barely have time for yourself. That's not fair." She kept staring at the paper, still trying to understand. "But what does this mean?" "It means you don't have to worry anymore. I'm promoting you. You won't have to clean my house anymore. From now on, you'll handle the administration. You'll earn more and have more time to be with Lily." Margaret's eyes widened. "What? But, Mr. Pierre, Aaron held her hands firmly. You deserve this, Margaret. The lump in her throat became impossible to hold back. The tears came again. She covered her face, sobbing. I don't know how to thank you. Aaron smiled. Just promise me one thing. She looked up at him, still crying. What? When Lily steps onto that stage for the first time, I want to see you in the front row cheering for her. Margaret laughed through her tears. Always. She held the contract to her chest. It wasn't just a piece of paper. It was proof that after spending so much time taking care of others, someone was finally taking care of her. But there was still one last thing, and Lily was about to have the most unforgettable moment of her life. That night, Margaret could barely sleep. Everything felt like a dream. The new job, the ballet school. But what moved her the most was the moment that was about to happen. The next morning, she got ready calmly, picked up the little jewelry box, and headed to her daughter's house, where Lily lived. As soon as her granddaughter opened the door, she ran straight into her arms. Grandma, Margaret smiled, holding her tight. I have something for you, my love. She sat down on the couch, placed Lily on her lap, and took the small box from her purse. The little girl's eyes widened at the sight of the golden ribbon. What is it? Margaret slowly opened the box, revealing the gold earrings. Lily's eyes sparkled. They're beautiful, Grandma. Margaret cupped her face gently. You deserve them, my love, and I want these earrings to remind you of something. You can be anything you want to be. The little girl smiled, deeply touched, as Margaret carefully put the earrings on her small ears. But the surprise wasn't over yet. Margaret held her granddaughter's hands and took a deep breath. And there's one more thing. Lily looked at her curiously. What is it? Margaret glanced at her daughter, who already knew the news and was trying to hold back tears. You're starting ballet classes on Monday. Time stood still. Lily's eyes went wide. What? Margaret laughed, watching the excitement take over her granddaughter. Your dream, my love. You're going to dance. Lily froze for a second. Then she threw herself into her grandmother's arms, hugging her with all her strength. Grandma, I can't believe it. Margaret closed her eyes, feeling her heart overflow with joy. This was the moment she had waited her whole life for, but she still had one last thing to tell her. And when Lily found out who was behind it all, she couldn't hold back her tears. Lily was still sobbing in her grandmother's arms, her eyes shining with happiness. Am I really going to dance, Grandma? Margaret smiled, gently running her fingers through the little girl's hair. Yes, my love, and not just anywhere. You'll be studying at the best ballet school in the city. Lily's eyes widened. But how? Margaret held her tiny hands and took a deep breath. It was a gift, sweetheart, from Mr. Aaron Pierre. Lily blinked a few times as if trying to understand. Mr. Pierre? Your boss? Margaret nodded, smiling. He saw how much you love to dance, and he decided to give you this chance. Lily covered her mouth with her little hands. Her eyes instantly filled with tears. He did that for me? Margaret nodded. The little girl was silent for a few seconds. Then she lifted her head, a new sparkle in her eyes. I want to thank him. Margaret chuckled, touched. One day you will, my love. But Lily didn't want to wait. She ran to her room, grabbed a piece of paper and some colored pencils. Margaret watched curiously as her granddaughter carefully drew something with deep focus. When she was done, she held up the paper with pride. There, it was a simple drawing, but full of meaning. Lily, in a pink tutu, dancing on a stage, and in the audience a man smiling. Lily handed the drawing to her grandmother. Give this to him, Grandma. Tell him it's a gift. Margaret held the paper, feeling her heart tighten. I will, my love. And she did. The next day, when she handed the drawing to Aaron for the first time, he was the one left speechless. He held the paper for a few moments, then smiled. This is, without a doubt, the most valuable gift I've ever received." Margaret smiled, and in that moment, they both knew they had done something that would last forever. And what about you? Have you ever experienced or witnessed something like this? Share your story in the comments. I read every single one. If this story touched your heart, leave a like so more people can see it. And if you love stories like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications because there are plenty more that will move you. By the way, there's a video on the screen right now that I'm sure you'll love. Click on it and get ready to be moved once again.